Hey, today's show is sponsored by The Optimist at the platform in Culver City. Go say hi to Joey and David over there, my buddies who own the place. And you get some of the coolest gear, incredible clothes, lifestyle. You can't beat it. Go there, mention my name, get 20% off. The Optimist LA. Please subscribe and leave us a comment wherever you consume your podcasts, at YouTube as well. We appreciate it. Each person you get to subscribe helps our ratings. Today's guest from New York City, founder of Hudson Advisory, Stephen Ferrara. He's unbelievable. They were one of the top 10 brokers in the country with 1.2 or $3 billion of production, but a great guy, really down to earth. Grew up on the East Coast outside of New York, really just dialed in on every level, knows his stuff inside and out. You can find him at Hudson Advisory on Instagram or hudsonadvisory.com. They're my go-to people in New York. So enjoy this episode. School is in session. Hey, welcome back to The Deal with Danny Brown. I'm here with today's superstar guest out of New York City, Stephen Ferrara from the Hudson Advisory Group. How you doing, brother?
I'm well, Danny. Thanks for having me. How are you?
I'm good. I guess I need to disclose you're actually not in New York. It's a little sunny. Where are you?
It is. Yeah, that's my shameless plug. I'm in Miami at the moment, and it's beautiful outside. Although in New York it's 55 and feeling a lot like spring. So somewhat bittersweet to have escaped the tundra, and they're having a good weather weekend ahead of them.
Well, don't worry about it. It's 85 degrees in LA, so we're all going surfing after this. So don't be jealous.
God bless you. Nice to be you, Danny.
So look, I want to jump into a lot of stuff today. Hudson Advisory Group, which you founded 2017, one of the top teams in the country, $400-500 million of production last year, and maybe
1.3 billion.
Excuse me, $1.3 billion of production last year. What's a couple hundred million? So anyway, why I want to jump into this is that, yes, there's a lot of incredible brokers in our network that we all know. You're my New York guy. But what I want to jump into is Hudson Advisory was founded 5-6 years ago. The trajectory has been insane. It's like something I've never seen. Kind of talk us through how Hudson Advisory started and the trajectory from year 1 to year 2 to year 3, 4, et cetera. So we have an idea. Because this has rarely happened in real estate, where a team has come on in a big market like this and taken off.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, and thank you for the kind words. So, high level, we started. My partner Clayton Arrigo and I founded Hudson Advisory, kind of tail end, call it Q4 of 16, and really launched it formally Q1 of 17. The initial crew, if you will, was a director of operations, Clayton and myself sort of at the helm as partners and founders, and 2 junior agents. We had tremendous success kind of right out of the gate. And I think taking a step back, we both had very good individual careers. So I was at a company named Town Residential. Clayton was at a company, Douglas Elliman, worked with Frederick and John. We both kind of flew under the radar. But we were both doing big business. I mean, when we signed our contract at Compass, I had a $70 million month, and I was just a standalone agent, no team, no partner. So, we looked at that. We're very similar stylistically. Our business is extremely similar. Where we were transacting was the same neighborhoods and a lot of network overlap. So we actually met on a deal. We really hit it off. We decided kind of organically that one day we should do something together. The question was, what was that something? Where was that something? What did that all look like? It all crystallized. We launched Hudson Advisory in 2017. The initial thesis was really keep it small, keep it all. It was something we did not plan on having a very large team. We did not plan on servicing multiple markets. Because we had such a tremendous success and we're really well received in the brokerage community, we're big believers in specialization of area and neighborhood. And in Manhattan, people often say, how's the city market? And I am forced to ask which market, right? There's 12 submarkets just in Manhattan. That's not including the outer boroughs, not including Brooklyn. So, as our business started to grow, as our deal volume and deal flow started to grow, we really wanted to make sure that everyone stayed in their lane. I personally, my lane, my market is downtown luxury market. So I'm getting calls to do work on the Upper West Side, the Upper East Side. Could I do it? Sure. Have I done it? Yes. Is that, my area of expertise? No. So as we started to grow our business and as we assembled this team, we really wanted to handpick people for specific neighborhoods with specific skill sets. You don't want, big thing with team building, and you learn it over time, is you don't want everyone to be the same. Everyone needs to provide some value, some edge, some utility. And that's how you really build and form a well-rounded team that can effectively handle transactions from, $3,000 a month rentals or $500,000 sales to $50 million sales. And last year we were, fortunate enough, we sold the penthouse at 56 Leonard, penthouse 60 for 45 million.
Is that 55, 56 million?
It was 45 million. We closed.
And how big was that? How big was that unit? It was like 7,000 or 6,000?
Yeah, just shy of 8,000. It was duplex, 18-foot ceilings, some of the best views I've ever seen in Manhattan, and over $6,000 a foot. So
right, so that's what I'm getting at. 6,000 a foot. We're here in LA. Some of the peak buildings, 3,000 a foot is sort of the ultra high end, and there's very few buildings there. So that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you quantify, it's hard to quantify. There's some subjectivity to value of something that has 20-foot ceilings at the top of a building with unobstructed 360-degree views, right? The base of the building is not selling at 6,000 a foot, just to clarify. But all of that said, we wanted to build a team that could service everything from entry level to the highest of high end in multiple markets. So we're in Brooklyn, we're in the Hamptons, we're in all of the Manhattan submarkets. And today, I long-winded way of telling that story, but we started with a team of 5. Today, we're a team of 25.
25 agents, or is 25 include support?
25 soup to nuts. That's directors of,
support,
marketing.
Everything.
That's directors of operation. That's in-house media and all visual representation. So photography, videography, et cetera.
So you're doing that in-house too. How many agents are actually selling out of that 25?
We have 17.
All right, so it's some good.
And that's across 3 markets. Most people look at New York, they don't sort of bifurcate Manhattan to Brooklyn. We made a conscious decision to do so because despite the fact that a lot of people who look in downtown Manhattan will also look in Brooklyn, the area of expertise and really being able to specialize in those neighborhoods is not somebody who's living in the West Village who, goes to Brooklyn Heights or goes to Dumbo. It's someone who lives in Dumbo, someone who lives in Williamsburg, the same as I live in the West Village. I know the streets better than anyone in the West Village.
Boots on the ground. You got to know, and feel and touch and smell and know the nuances. And I totally get that. There's so much to unpack here. So I want to rewind to one of the first things you said, because I wasn't aware of this. You were saying that you and your partner were in the business producing at a high level, just under the radar. Speak to me about that. How long have you been in the business? I didn't realize that. I thought
I'm year 9 now. I'm year 9.
Okay.
So I was
still a rookie, but you're getting there.
Still a rookie. I haven't hit that 10-year, that decade yet.
So you were in it for 5 years before you started Hudson Advisory. So you already were in the game, and your partner too.
And my partner is 10 years. So he's a year ahead of me in the business. He's 2 years older than me. So what comes with that in New York being a very social city is, that's effectively the same age, right? We're doing the same things. We're going to the same places. We know the same people, which really it's been great because it's allowed us to amplify what we do and how we do it. It's rather than me making noise to the left, him making noise to the right, we're both making noise in the same direction. And because of that, it's hard to ignore.
Yeah. And it's a theme I've seen with talking with other teams that have 2 guys or gals that have partnered up, where it's like 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2. A lot of times 1 + 1 can equal 3, 4, 5, 10x. And it's really smart. It sounds like you guys have both recognized that and thought, okay, similar aesthetics, we trust each other. Let's put this together and see if we can grab more market share by coming together. And it clearly has worked well. And to speak a little bit about another thing you said with team members, it seems like you've taken a really strategic approach, which is also just spot on with having an expert in a micro market on your team. So it's not like, hey, I got 5 other people that are in the same neighborhood as me, and I'm just going to give them deals that I can't handle. you're like saying, hey, I want to bring in the expert uptown, the expert in Brooklyn, the expert here.
Absolutely.
I love that concept. I find that,
Well,
I don't think people
what it
do
does
that.
is it allows you to really, in some respects, corner a market, but it allows you to effectively capture market share in an organic way where there's no imposter syndrome. I walk into a pitch in West Village, Greenwich Village, Soho, NoHo, Tribeca, which are my core markets, sort of the downtown luxury market. And don't get me wrong, I'm studying this stuff all day, but I can walk in and really understand the property, I know people in the building more than likely. I've sold a house on the street before. There's some version of a level of confidence and conviction. And the resume also can't be ignored, where if I'm getting pulled into a pitch in Williamsburg, I've sold one apartment in Williamsburg in 9 years.
I love it. I love that concept. All right. So we're going to shift gears now. We got a breakdown of the Hudson Advisory. By the way, just brilliant branding. The name Hudson Advisory sounds like a legit company that's been around for 200 years that my grandfather carried a briefcase to on Wall Street. I love it. But let's go back to the beginning. So tell me a little bit about yourself personally, where you grew up, where you went to school, what your parents did for a living, and sort of walk us up to how you got into real estate.
I love that. I don't know how interesting of a story it is, but it's a story nonetheless. So I grew up in Montclair, New Jersey. I reference Montclair because it's about 12 miles outside of Manhattan.
Close.
A lot of people, very close. It's a big commuter town back into the city. It has a lot of connectivity to the city, if you will. A lot of families who lived in Montclair.
Isn't that where Tony Soprano lived? Pretty close.
Probably. I think he was in Caldwell, which is next to Montclair. But for conversation's sake, we'll call it Montclair. But a lot of the families that lived there, it's at one point or another lived in Manhattan or in Brooklyn and moved there as their life progressed, and they chose to move from the city to the suburbs. Sure. So I grew up in Montclair. My mother's a school teacher, recently retired. She's a speech pathologist. So I'd like to think I got some very elementary level of patience from her. And my father was also recently retired, was in the liquor industry, and he worked in Manhattan. So I was going to the city at a young age. The concept of Montclair, New Jersey, at least in my mind, was you're born here, you're raised here, and when you're done with living here, you move to New York, and that's where you kind of start that next phase of your life. So that's what I did. I graduated in 2008, and I was supposed to go work at Lehman Brothers. And as we know, Lehman Brothers, I moved into the city in September of 2008 to what I thought was a job, and the job was no more. And I had no plan B. There was no backup plan. So I leaned on my father and said, what do I do? And he said, well, what's your plan? And I said, that was my plan. He said, well, what's your plan B? I said, I don't have one. He's like, well, I don't know what to tell you. So he made one phone call to a dear friend of his who is the GM of a well-known hospitality brand. I believe at the time it might have been the Helmsley, but my first job, fast forwarding, was at the Peninsula Hotel. Okay. So I pivoted from finance. I wasn't meant to be in finance. I didn't study finance. It was definitely not the path that I would have, taken, but it was a path nonetheless. I transitioned into hospitality, which I actually really enjoyed. And I think part of my reference of my mother giving me a little bit of patience, my father gave me a lot of hospitality. I would see when I went places with him, we'd go to restaurants and they were accounts that he would be working with. And I'd see how he'd work the room. I'd see who he'd talk to and how he'd give people special attention, and how he knew people's, their wives' name, their kids' name, how's your son doing, et cetera, et cetera. So
that's good stuff. You can't learn that at Harvard Business School.
You cannot learn that at Harvard Business School, although maybe they teach a course online at HBS now for that. But I had the front row seat of sort of
that's amazing education.
Yeah, and it was exciting. And I also got to explore and was exposed to very high-end establishments in Manhattan. I was going to Nello's on Madison Ave when I was a teenager and had no idea that Nello's was like a cool, fancy place.
Yeah, you had no idea. It was just where you went with your dad.
Idea. That's it. That was where we would go, and they would take good care of us, and we'd go with my mother, my sister, and but fast forward, so my background hospitality, and I ended up burning out. I was running nightclubs, restaurants. I started in hotels, I was getting in at 4 or 5 in the morning after closing down the lounge and meatpacking, and it was daunting. It was really exhausting line of work. It's not for the faint of heart, and that gave me a lot of exposure to New York. I ran at one point the hottest nightclub in the meatpacking district called 10 June.
10 June, baby, let's go.
That's right. Yeah, there he is. I probably didn't let you in at some point if you came with the.
I was in. I was going in with Jeter, back door.
There you go. There you go. No, but it gave me a lot of exposure to a lot of very interesting people in the city. It also kind of shed a light on, one thing I've learned in life is not necessarily figuring out what you want to do, but also figuring out what you don't want to do. And I had this whole plan on, I'm going to be the next Ian Schrager boutique hotel, the spa, the lounge, the restaurant, the Chateau Marmont.
Yeah, kind sounds like that was the path you were on initially.
And then I realized that the owners of the hotel are there on a Sunday. The owners of the nightclub are there Saturday at 3 a.m. And I didn't want that life. So I met a lot of people in finance, a lot of people in real estate, and decided that real estate was a path I wanted to go down. I understood real estate. I bought investment properties at the downturn, which is right around 2009, 10, 11, multifamily properties in New Jersey and in South Florida. And it was something that I felt I understood. I could navigate transactions. I loved architecture and design. I understood space very well because part of my job in hospitality was laying out rooms every single night. You're laying out who's going where and how this is supposed to all come together. That's all part of the experience. So fast forward, I got into real estate. And I almost left year one because I made no money. I made absolutely.
That's typical, though. That's most
people. Spent all my savings. I think I made $11,000 in the first 12 months.
That's why 90% of people in real estate are gone after a year or two or whatever it is. But that's generally how it is. So it's interesting to stop here. If you reverse engineer how to to become a big real estate luxury agent in New York City, your background is like the reverse engineer.
Totally.
Be raised with an educator on one side, and then your dad, who sounded like the ultimate sort of luxury salesman, and then to get into hospitality.
He was selling Cristal and Domain Knot and these high-end brands that really, it is a luxury. So it's something that I was totally exposed to. And when you look at it on paper and reverse engineer and sort of look at this roadmap that was definitely not a direct line to getting where I am and sort of what's ahead of us, it all makes a lot of sense.
It makes a ton of sense now.
I had no idea.
It didn't make sense at 3 a.m. when you're falling asleep. You're like, I got to get the heck out of here at 10 June.
Yep. That's right. Yeah, 10 years ago, it made no sense. Today, it makes a lot of sense.
Now you've entered real estate. So let's see if you can get back to what it was like that first year. You said you made $11,000. So obviously you're blowing through money. You came off this other career where you were probably
1 month of rent.
Yeah.
I had 1 month of rent left.
So what were the challenges? Try to put yourself back in that headspace for people that are trying to break through in this business. Because, majority of people don't break through, or they're struggling to break through. And it's real. Even guys that get to the top of the game. I mean, I went through it too. There's tough times trying to establish yourself in this business.
Absolutely tough times. And I don't know if you saw my deep inhale, exhale, pause, because when you said put myself back in that mindset,
just freak you out.
It's still anxiety inducing. But frankly, it was a gift. And I'll tell you why. I assumed, and of course I emphasize the word assume, that I had this great social network. I knew all these people. Everybody, I'm a pretty friendly, non-controversial person. So I had a lot of, friends and a big network of people that, of course, they'd want to work with me in some real estate capacity. What I didn't realize was everybody knows a broker.
Yeah.
They know more than one broker.
6.
Yeah, 5 or 6. All of those brokers have more experience than I do at this point because I'm just starting the business. And I really didn't even know where to begin. What I learned very quickly, and a friend of mine who's in the business was actually retelling me the story because I forgot it. I actually made a very conscious decision to not do the low hanging fruit. I wouldn't do rentals, studio entry level rentals. I wouldn't do that. anything under $1 million. I wouldn't take business in,
Wow.
financial district or in Harlem just for the sake of getting a check. I would not do that.
Wow. So
And
you were
what
very
that,
disciplined on your approach and strategy.
yeah. And almost inadvertently, right? I cannot tell you with a straight face that it was by design, but what I will tell you is that made me hone in on the markets that I wanted to learn. And I truly believe it cut the learning curve considerably, because you can't be everything to everyone. I did not want to be a jack of all trades. I wanted to stay in my zone. I wanted to work with very specific property, a very specific price point. And at the time, there was no metric or basis on how to do it. There's no plan or roadmap on how to do it. I'm a big manifester. So I had a vision board, and on my board, I remember my second year on my board, I wanted to sell a building. I wanted to have the highest price sale of in the week. And I wanted to do a deal off market. And ironically, I did a deal, 43 Crosby Street. My second year in the business, I sold this building for $15 million.
Wow. Big
And
sale,
it was off market, highest sale of the week, and a building in Soho. So, I would say, and by no means am I in a position to give anyone direction, but what I would say that worked for me is I was very disciplined. I stayed focused. I didn't lose hope. I was very close to it. I'm very fortunate. I have a good support system of friends who kind of would talk me off the ledge when I was like, oh, maybe I should leave. Maybe I should go back to hospitality. And everyone was like, stay patient, stay patient. You're 26 years old. Like it'll come. But again, manifesting. And it's not as simple as to want those things. You have to take measures to be prepared to actually execute on that and know the market and know the buildings and know how to handle a large transaction. I'm very fortunate. I also had very good managers at that time in my career where I really needed them and someone to hold my hand through that kind of a deal.
This is a really important point, because we hear so much the narrative of manifest, meditate, mindfulness, and for sure, I'm a believer in that. You clearly have had a lot of success. A lot of successful people are disciplined with that, but it's not just that. You still have to put in the work day to day, hour to hour, month, year, multiple years. It doesn't just happen. You got to visualize it, focus on it, and then execute your plan. It doesn't happen one without the other. So interesting point. So you came close to hanging them up, as we all did. I remember those moments, those first few years.
Very close.
Yeah, there's those moments.
Closer than I'd like to admit. I remember texting friends of mine who had owned nightclubs, asking if there was an opportunity to be a maitre d' or run the door at night while I was working in real estate during the day, because I had no money left.
Yeah. So you had a big breakthrough sale in year 2, which is huge. My question was going to be, at what point, how many years in did you feel like, okay, this is what I'm doing. I don't have to worry about paying my rent. I don't have to think about switching careers. This is what I'm doing now. Because I know a lot of people struggle with that for many years.
It was year 2, and it was not that sale, by the way. I worked at a company, Town Residential. Their model very different than a lot of other brokerages. Although now that I think about it, different than Compass model in Manhattan, but similar to other brokerage models in the country, is they would take retail space. So you'd have walk-in traffic. And I did what was called floor time.
Yep.
I'd sign up from 10 to 12 or 12 to 2 every Saturday and Sunday, every single weekend.
Every weekend.
Every weekend.
Not sleeping in. You're there.
I was not sleeping in. I was not traveling. I didn't have money to travel. So there was no
watching football.
10 to 12, I would do Sunday sometime because I could do football after. But Saturday, 12 to 2. And I was very fortunate because the office I worked in was Soho. So there was a brunch community or brunch scene. I was across from a restaurant, Felix, which is a very lively atmosphere. And I got very lucky. I had somebody walk in to the office who's still a dear friend. And frankly, I don't even think he knows how much he changed my life and the trajectory of my career. But he's a very
now.
I'm gonna send him this when we're done recording. He's a famous architect from Milan, and he wanted a Soho loft. And the reason I reference famous architect is because creative types, in my experience, particularly anyone in the real estate creative sense. So designers, architects, they're very specific on their requirements and they want something that's very special. Now, there's a lot of special property in Manhattan, but there's also a lot of new development property, which tend to be more cookie cutter. And that's a non-starter for this client, at least.
Yep.
So I looked at about 200 lofts with him, 200. And he would come to town once a month and we'd go out and look at stuff and I'd preview things and I'd video things and I'd send him off markets and I'd call every broker who did deals in buildings that I thought would be interesting. And by the time we actually found something and executed on it, I knew that market so well.
You learned
and the confidence. So the biggest thing that happened fast forward is we enter contract on his purchase. We then enter contract on his sale. So I do two transactions with him, totaling, I think it was $4 million between both.
Yeah.
So great, particularly as someone who I had no income. So that's was a very nice
chunk of money
change for me.
Yeah.
But what clicked was the confidence. What I saw was, okay, I took a year to learn a market. I took a year to learn the process. I had a lot of losses in that period, but I got 2 really good wins, and they were really difficult transactions and really difficult structures of transaction. And if I can do this, the cash buyer in a condo down the street, like that's a layup. That's, what I had to do here in board packages and co-ops and the first foreign purchaser in a co-op. And then I sold his loft, which was a walk-up in a carriage house that had no board formed. I mean, these were very nuanced deals. And when I got through them, it all clicked that I was like, I can do this.
Again, that's an MBA in high-end luxury real estate that you can't get that at Stanford or Harvard. You got to do it yourself. And most people don't want to put the time in or don't even think about it. And here you are, first things that stand out. You're doing floor time every weekend. A young single guy, or you may not have been single, but young guys who want to be partying and this and
not married, not kids. So we'll call it single for, especially at that time.
At that time, and you're doing it week after week after week after week, and you're like, oh, I got lucky. Well, you made your luck, right? How many weeks and hours did you spend there? You dedicated a year or two doing that, and you got lucky. Well, that's what it took to put you in position to get that client. And then you dedicated yourself for a year learning all this nuanced inventory. So now you're an expert in this specific high-end, challenging, nuanced market. I mean, that's what it's about, right? Like, that's why you're successful. And people don't understand that it doesn't just happen overnight. You have to put the work in. This is not an easy business. And if you're going to compete and make this kind of money, you got to be prepared to put that kind of work in. You're not going to be a big leaguer and not practice, right?
Right. But it's funny you say that, because I don't know that I ever take the moment to take a step back and think about these stories that I'm, so fortunate to be sharing with you. But when I do, and your reaction to it is like, of course, that's what happened, right? You're in the weeds, you're in the flow so much that you're not necessarily thinking about, this is step 1, this is step 2, this is step 3, this is step 4, and step 5 is a closing, right? I'm just going through the motions. I had no frame of reference. I didn't really know what to expect other than keep going. And in hindsight, you're right. That floor time was a sacrifice. The seeing 200 apartments was an expertise. My client created the expert. I wasn't the expert. This mandate created an expertise.
Yeah, and this brings me to another crucial element of succeeding in what we do. What you just said, you put all this time in. You had doing floor time, learning. There was never a guarantee that you were going to get any deal.
Oh, no.
You got to be uncomfortable and be comfortable being uncomfortable, knowing that I'm putting all this time in, I might never make a penny. And that's that Mamba mentality from basketball to business. And that's what you have to have, because there's no guarantee. We could work with a client for 3 years and it doesn't happen. We could study and do open houses for 5 years. So these are such nuggets of wisdom.
And one thing to your point of no guarantee, I think oftentimes I should say, agents look at the end result as the transaction 100%. Or the closing or the check or whatever 100%. Version of they celebrate. when I think of those things, the no guarantee of a closing was one thing, but I had a bona fide Googleable client that I now had a reason to call every top agent downtown, to preview every property, to write owner. I mean, I was writing handwritten letters to certain buildings to see if I could drum up an off-market sale. I entered the business, I should say. I got my license November, I think it was 12th, 2012, or might have been the 18th, but it was the day of Hurricane Sandy. Whole other conversation, not necessarily relevant to this, but I entered the market in what was coming out of the downturn and ramping up into a very aggressive market. And as someone with no market share and someone with no previous business, no resume, it was very challenging to do business. Yep. So I actually look at that as a gift. I was fortunate to have some free time at that stage of my career where I could develop good habits to try to unlock value and create some competitive edge for my client, i.e. writing handwritten notes. That exercise, I should say, has translated to transactions by sitting down, studying a building. I want the 68 Jane, perfect example. It was a pre-war building in the West Village, perfect for the client. I pulled all the previous transactions. I wrote handwritten notes to everyone in there. The owner of the penthouse called me. Yeah. And you know what he said is, I have a deep respect for this because when I started my career, he was ex-finance guy. I used to write handwritten notes to try to get people to take me seriously. And he gave me a meeting. I didn't end up doing a deal with him, but he allowed me to show the property. I was very close to a deal and we kept in touch. So all of that happened and again, good habits. So the end goal, which was to close a deal, is great. But what I got in the process, the education, all those other sort of benefits, supplementary or ancillary benefits that came with doing a deal were really what stand out today.
Handwritten notes, all the technology, all the social media and handwritten notes are still so effective. Robert Refkin always says that.
I'm a lefty, so when I write, sometimes it's the ink streaks.
Oh, you have that awful handwriting.
Yeah. That's how they know I really wrote it.
Yeah. Robert always talks about handwritten notes and he sent notes coldly to mentors and he's built a mentorship network from it. And it's like, okay, handwritten notes. Go back to old school.
30 minutes of
ink
your
and a
day.
pen.
Yeah. 30 minutes of your day. By the way, could be 30 minutes a week.
Yeah.
But just do the exercise.
Do it.
I still do it.
Yeah. So today here you are sitting on a huge team with a ton of business, a billion, I don't know what you said. I can't even.
1.3, Danny, 1.3.
I'm choking on that number. So that said, it's not always, whipped cream and cherries. Talk to me about, at this stage of your team and career and your business, what are some of your biggest challenges? What are the things that keep you up at night? What are the things that make you get that sick stomach feel?
Oh man,
everything pretty much, right?
Yeah. Basically the business in itself. No, I think that I'm not oblivious, and I'm very fortunate, as everyone on my team is, that we had such an incredible year. It's not lost on me that those numbers are head scratching.
Yeah.
What comes with that is the pressure to do it again. And people often say you're only as good as your last deal. Removing that, one good year is not enough for me. I don't want to be the person who had a banner year and then flame out. So for us, it's consistency. It's also team building and being better leaders. And that also comes with personal growth. So that's something that I know I speak for Clayton as well. That's something that we're both working on and taking very seriously, while also trying to be the best that we can be in our particular markets for our clients. So I think that it's what keeps me up at night is constantly trying to be better. This is not a business that, you have one great year and now it's like a legacy business and you don't have to work hard anymore, or you don't have to try anymore, or your phone's going to just ring with inbound. Every time your phone rings, it's like a dollar sign. Right. That is not, at least for me, that's not the world I'm in.
Not
the other version of that is the team building and trying to be a better leader just for the team, and being present for the team and holding space for the team, and making sure that if Ian or Clay or Ryan or Aaron or anyone on the team needs something, I'm available for them. And it's challenging because, I'm also trying to be present for my girlfriend. I'm also trying to be present for my family, my parents, because I don't have children. And so to do all of that and still be broker or rainmaker, not team manager, but also wearing somewhat of a management hat is challenging. So it's exciting. I don't think the challenges, they're daunting, but I don't think that the challenges, they don't faze me in a way that it makes me jump out of bed every morning. And so these challenges are good.
So really quick, talk me through your morning routine, your first hour or two of a day. What does that look like with all this pressure and all this stuff? And you don't have kids, you're not married, but still balance and trying to figure out how to work in a life and family and relationships with all this business. But I'd be curious how the day starts.
I'm going to answer your question very directly on how the day starts, but I will start by saying if somebody can tell me, someone who's figured it out on how to actually have a very well-balanced life, I would, love to talk to them. I have not figured that out. I have not figured that out. How my day starts, I have a dog. I'm a big dog guy. First thing I do every morning, grab my phone. I do my best not to look at it right away, but I grab my phone, make sure I'm fully charged, make sure my AirPods are fully charged. My alarm goes off at 6:30. Sometimes I have calls at 7. So, it's not necessarily a soft landing every morning.
Yeah.
But I grab my dog, we go for a walk, I grab a coffee. The first hour of my day, I really prefer to just be me and him and kind of, I can't necessarily call New York City nature, but we'll call it nature for conversation's sake. Outside, fresh air, not so reactive right away.
Yeah.
Right. And that has a lot to do with having a business partner. I know that if there's anything in crisis mode, I'm aware of it. If I go to bed early, I know that he's probably up doing work. If he goes to bed early, I'm up doing work. If I wake up early and he's sleeping in, I'm making sure that I'm knocking out the things that have to happen first so that there is a sense of flow and there is a sense of normalcy. Otherwise, you're just working all day and all night and you go to bed to close your eyes, but you're not even getting rest. So first hour of my day is I try to keep it cool and calm. And then I'm in front of a computer for an hour, almost non-negotiably, where I'm knocking out everything that I need to that happened last night, everything that's happening in the morning, and everything that's in front of my day. Typically an hour is enough for that. And that sets the day up for relative success. I will not tell you that it sets it up to be a smooth day. I will not lie to you.
Things change during the day, schedules change, things come up.
I can plan the perfect day.
Grenades are thrown into your schedule.
Yeah. Every day. Without fail. So part of it is frankly learning to deal with that and making sure that when you're in the eye of the storm, everything happening around you doesn't pull you into it. Right. You have to have a plan. I have not started to meditate. It's February 11th. It is on my New Year resolution list.
Still got 11 months. You got time.
I know. But a lot of people do meditate 15 minutes in the morning and kind of keep them cool and calm. We're in a business that's very reactive. You can be as proactive as you want. Your schedule is not going to happen according to your schedule. Again, if someone's figured this out, I'd love to speak to them. I have not.
I have not either. And I think the way you've articulated is true. You can have it planned out. You can time block. You can do that. You can be organized. You can meditate. But things are coming at us so fast, and you have to learn how to stay calm while everyone else around you is losing their mind and things are breaking down. And you got to be comfortable in that uncomfortable zone. And,
totally.
At the same time, weighing in that you have to get things accomplished. So you can't get totally distracted from your plan.
Well, and some things are more time sensitive than others, and some things have bigger stakes and bigger swings than others. So it's really also having the ability to make decisions on the fly, and you hope you're making the right one, but net you have to make them. Things that your to-do list doesn't cross itself off.
Couple questions. Any books you'd recommend or lectures or speakers you'd recommend to agents or people in our business that you think that would be helpful?
Great podcast. It's called The Deal with Danny Brown.
Yes.
A+.
After that's it. You're good.
Yeah, that's all anyone needs for success. I'm reading The 12-Week Year right now. which Cindy Scholes, who runs our Hamptons business and helped launch that market with us, recommended, and I'm obsessed. I'm, again, big manifestor, big goal setter. I try to put plans in place and systems in place, and this it changed the way I think about all of that. And I have not finished it, but where I am, which is, I don't know, a third of the way through it, is that every quarter should be your metric, not every year.
That's correct.
And it's an easier way. Where it's beneficial for me is it's short-term goals, short-term planning. It's not so, you're not thinking about it that it's so far away that it's somewhat ambiguous, right? I know that for me to have 12 weeks, every week's important. Every day is important. And you can actually break it down. And it's as simple as, where I am in the book right now is I wrote down, if every day was a great day, what would have to happen every single day?
I'm getting that book. I haven't read it. I love it.
Amazing. And it's an easy read. You could finish it in, a couple of days or a week if you really wanted to, but that's my recommendation for that.
All right. If I'm jumping on a plane now and coming to New York tonight for dinner, where you getting me in? Where are the hot restaurants?
Oh boy. Well, the gift and the curse of New York restaurant scene right now is that it's very difficult to get reservations at the moment.
But you're getting me in. So where are we going?
Listen, I'm getting you in. We're gonna go to Zero Bond, which is a members club.
Perfect.
Because I know I can get you in there.
Perfect. I like clubs.
Yeah, that's where we're gonna go. We're gonna do. There's 2 or 3 restaurants in the space. There's a bar. There's a library area. You can go play backgammon. It's but it's a nice social environment.
It's not Annabelle's, but it will do on last second.
As good as we're. By the way, word on the street is Annabelle's might be coming to New York.
Oh,
Who knows?
Amazing! Now, how about if it's July and we're going to the Hamptons to fly out? Where are we going to dinner?
I'm a Crow's Nest guy. I like Crow's Nest and Montauk. I like that that you're going out to the Hamptons.
Montauk too, because we're surfing.
Yeah, that's right. And Crow's Nest is beautiful.
Awesome.
It's got this rustic kind of natural feeling to it that I think most guests who we bring there tend to really appreciate it.
Yeah. As we cut off now, we're about to end, but I want you to give us like a quick elevator pitch on the New York City market, which I know is on fire, but from an insider's view, what is the 30-second elevator pitch on New York City high-end luxury real estate in 2022 as we're speaking now?
So the trend we're seeing is very thin inventory. And I think that's been a trend that you've seen in your markets. It's certainly a trend in the South Florida market. I have not seen a market that's been so inventory constrained before. Really started mid, Q2, Q3 last year. The market's on fire. There are more $10+ million deals happening than ever before. If there was more inventory, we'd see sustained activity from last year. My concern is that the lack of inventory will actually have transaction volume lower. And depending on how the media chooses to spin that narrative could be that New York's slowing down. But I can tell you, boots on the ground, in the trenches every day, that is absolutely not the case. New York City markets is very healthy, very alive. There's very sophisticated buyers and there's very smart sellers taking advantage of it.
Yeah, sounds very similar to what we're seeing here on the West Side. Steven, thanks for joining us. I know you're a busy man. Go enjoy yourself in Miami. Great to see you.
My pleasure, Danny.
Look forward to grabbing dinner soon in New York.
Or gonna get you to the East Coast.
Yeah, and if you're out here, we'll go somewhere too.
Yeah, before we go, I'm going to flip that question. Where are we going when I fly out in 2 weeks?
I like old school. Dan Tana's, Craig's, Italian.
Got it. We're done.
Done.
I'm your guy.
Italian's always good.
Yeah, well, I'm a Ferrara from North Jersey, so I think
that's perfect. You'll be right at home.
Yeah.
Great to see you, man. Thanks. You killed it.
Thanks for having me, Danny.
Talk to you.